I just wanted to let you guys know that anything I say is my opinion and mine only. It does not reflect my current department's opinion or law enforcement as a whole. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the Secret Society of Man podcast. I'm Zach and I'm here with my cousin Ryan. This week, Trump faced his second assassination attempt. This dude just needs to stay inside or wear a helmet or something like that because they're out to get him. What I found to be interesting is this time we know a little bit more about the assassination attempt as far as what the person is about that tried to do it, because they captured him alive. Yep. This one is active on social media, whereas last time it was completely impossible to find any information about the guy that did it. We still don't know anything about him. Right. But this was an older guy, and he has a little bit more of a history. And also, I haven't really heard too much about this. This was not breaking news like the first one was. We're already desensitized to political assassinations after just 9 weeks.
Yeah, when I saw that... So what happened was we were watching TV. I can't remember football. We were watching Kansas City Chiefs versus the Bengals. It was CBS. And all of a sudden cuts through and they're like breaking news, right? And it's like, well, if you're breaking news, the NFL is one of the largest businesses in the country, like billionaires. This has got to be like some serious news, you know? And sure enough, they say that second assassination attempt on Trump down in Florida. Was it Mar-a-Lago? Was it it was like a golf course? It was
West Palm Beach.
Yeah, somewhere.
I don't know exactly what one.
Sure. So it was in Florida, and it sounds like the guy didn't even get to hit like him with any bullets like the previous guy.
No.
And this guy, like you said, is alive. So I do know that the Secret Service, quite a bit of them fired back at him. So I don't know what the deal is with that. Like,
well, so they have a Secret Service guy that goes one hole ahead of Trump when he's golfing, so he can scout it out, you know?
Okay.
And so they were a little bit more on the ball this time than they were last time.
Yeah.
Well, the agent that was up there noticed a rifle barrel sticking through like a fence, and he immediately started opening fire at that guy, and then he ran, got into an SUV. And then I guess somebody saw the SUV leave, so they gave the FBI or the Secret Service a tip that allowed them to pull the van over. I think the guy fled or whatever, but they found that he had like an AK-47 type rifle and with a scope on it, and he had a couple of backpacks hung over a fence. But he actually, he didn't get any shots off.
Nope. So he survived, and like you said, he is an older gentleman. And he does have past history of like mental health problems, and like we've said in the past, typically a somewhat normal person probably is not going to be doing this, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's right wing or left wing crazy people, they're crazy. So I find it interesting. I read a little bit that he's going to be facing several federal gun charges, and not to mention like attempted murder and all that stuff. So he and that's if he's able to stand trial, right? I'm sure that's probably what a defense attorney is probably going to go after is he fit to stand trial? Because if he has mental health history, if he hasn't been taking his medications, I don't know what it could be.
Also, will he be alive for the trial?
Epstein,
because I really think that the camera batteries at the jail are getting lower by the minute.
Yeah.
If there's anybody that like put him onto this,
he's dead.
Then that's what's going to happen.
He's dead.
I would bet a meal at B-Dubs over that.
Yeah.
He's not going to make it to trial.
Well, and that includes like if Trump's team paid this guy to do that to like build propaganda, right?
Oh, I didn't think of that angle.
They could come back and say, well, look at the left, like they're trying to take us out, or it could just be the left. But either way, whatever side may have influenced him, that side's probably going to kill him now because they don't want any word getting out on what they did, like Epstein, you know?
Right.
He choked to death or suffocated to death in a place that should be almost impossible to choke yourself in. So
yeah, and now, truthfully, though, my impression is that it probably wasn't something like that. I mean,
sure,
there's always a possibility.
Yeah.
We'll never know, really. But I was looking into this guy's history. I mean, he already was a felon. So one of the charges that he's getting here is that he possessed a firearm as a felon.
Yep.
But one of his more notable cases, well, first of all, they interviewed his sons. I think he has 2 sons, and one of them was saying that they can't believe that he would do this. Like, he's a very nice guy. He's a loving father. It doesn't strike me as somebody that would do anything this crazy or violent, was his quote. Well, you look into his past, and he has a history where he got pulled over one time, and as he put his hand on a gun, officer tried to arrest him. He ran, fled to a business that he owns, and he barricaded himself in for 3 hours. It resulted in him getting a charge for owning a weapon of mass destruction, which is, I thought it was a nuke. It's not a nuke. He had a fully automatic machine gun in there.
Oh, yeah.
And so he was arrested for that. I think that instance alone, if my parent did that, and then later on down the line they tried to kill the president, I would say, well, yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly surprised. I'm surprised that they would actually do it, but it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And then the son called him a martyr as well, saying that, hey, if he has to go down as a martyr to show how messed up this system has become, then he supports that. So
he said that?
That's what the son said.
Yeah, he's
going
to be on the watch list.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that right now. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I'll be like, okay, find out his info because he's coming next, dude. Like, that's super interesting, dude. That's super interesting. For sure, though, like I would absolutely be like, I want all the info on that guy because if he's saying that stuff, that's scary, dude. Like, that is absolutely scary. And the other problem, too, is, right, like, you can't just say, well, no, he's a peaceful guy, like stuff like that, and then he goes and does this. Like, he's had a history of this. You can't just say that he's not capable of this. First of all, anyone's capable of doing anything, but if I were to go to that guy, the son, and I said, oh, interesting, my dad's never been charged with having a WMD. Never happened. Like, I don't, can we ask your neighbor, has their parent ever been charged with having a weapon of mass destruction? Because that doesn't sound normal to me at all. You know what I mean? Like,
he's treating it like it's just a ticket for underage drinking.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
well, yeah,
weapon of mass destruction.
Right.
Like, that's a technicality, though. And, like, I would just ask him, like, hey, like, you don't remember when your dad flew to the Ukraine to try to fight on the front lines? Yeah. And when they sent him away, you tried to get ex-Afghanistan soldiers to come over as mercenaries and supply Ukraine with an army? Because he did that.
Yeah.
There's people from the Ukraine army that said basically that he's a nut job. And he was making all these promises of sending over troops, but he clearly had no capability of doing that. But that's the kind of guy we're dealing with. And so it just baffles me how somebody can, with a straight face, go to the media. If my mom did that, like, you can support your parents in a lot of things, or family in a lot of things that maybe you wouldn't support a stranger on, and be like, what are you thinking, Mom? Like, I can't believe you're doing that, but, like, let's try to figure this out,
Yeah.
But if my mom tried to kill the president or tried to raise an army to go fight overseas, like, I would try to distance myself. I would definitely condemn that person for doing that.
Yeah, that's not good. If I go to my dad's house and I open the door and he's got 50 pipe bombs laying on his carpet, I'm going to say, I can't support you in this.
Yeah.
Like, this is
I got to call this in.
Correct. Like, we are beyond, like, saying it's for hunting or something like that. Like, I'm sure that guy probably was like, oh, no, like, if someone ever questioned him, no, like, I hog hunt down in Texas because they do that. They use, like, automatic machine guns in Texas to just, like, destroy hogs. You can, it's crazy.
Like, with a helicopter.
It's like night
Don't
vision.
They take a helicopter
and it's like green bullets getting shot out and stuff. But, I mean, this guy, I would put some money that he may not be able to stand trial. I would honestly put some money on that. And unfortunately for him, Florida does have the death penalty. So I think DeSantis is going to go for that. Yeah, Trump's probably in his office right now talking to him like, hey, man, we're going to make sure that he gets killed here. Like,
you got to make an example out of him, right? Especially after this happened twice. Like, you got to make the guy an example for anybody else that might try to do this.
Yeah.
They might bring back, like, public executions for this one.
Yeah, I mean,
just so everyone can see it.
Hey, if it's going to be a state, it's going to be Florida. That's
I guess you're right.
Because how many times do you hear a news story out of Florida and you're like, of course. You're like, that's where it is.
Yeah.
Florida is the lab rat of the U.S. They try everything first. They do everything first. You know, people having sex with animals and stuff like that. It's just totally normal, you know, or like deemed normal down there.
That's where all the outcasts go.
Yep.
But he does have a public defender, which he was given, because the judge said that he doesn't have any assets. I think he just has a couple of cars that he owns, and he supports like a family member or something like that. But the article said that he makes $3,000 a week. A fucking week. That's $150,000 a year, and he doesn't
doing?
have the assets.
I suppose it hasn't been released yet, huh? What he does for a job, like
I guess not. I think he had some sort of like auto mechanic in the incident where he barricaded himself up in his business with a weapon of mass destruction.
Okay.
That was in some sort of like auto shop, I believe.
So he probably owns a decent run.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, probably a construction guy. I mean, it's got to be that if you have the time to go fight wars as a mercenary overseas. You don't get if you work at a call center, you don't have enough PTO to do that.
Can you imagine?
If you own the business,
I don't know how many hours ahead they are to us, but like let's say right now, or let's say 1 a.m. you're sleeping, and you get a call from your mom, and you hear like in the back, you know, and you're like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Oh, I'm in Ukraine. I'm fighting the Russians." I'd be like, "No, you're not. Get back over here. You're gonna die." You know what I mean? Like, what a psycho.
Some families that are crazy like that, they might just treat it like a mission trip. You know, like your cousin goes down to Chile, you know, and he's like, oh, yeah, he's going
Build
down.
some houses?
He's going for a good cause. Well, he's out fighting in Kyiv.
Yeah.
You know? Did you hear that story recently that happened with the family? It was like a group of teenage kids. One of them was the son to a guy that was an immigrant from the Congo. And so the kid gets his buddies, and they're like, hey, do you want to go to the Congo with me and my dad? We're going to go to South Africa or whatever, but yeah, come to Africa with us for the summer. They're like, yeah, that sounds cool. So, you know, their parents give them a little money, and then they go on a trip to South Africa. Well, they end up getting involved in a coup to overthrow the Congo government. Like, this guy's dad was like a warlord, and now they're going to be executed because they played a role in trying to overthrow the government.
Dude, that's like a R-rated version of like that scam where they say they're a king in Africa and they need this money or whatever. Like, that is the R-rated version of that. Like, they go over there. The guy actually is like some warlord, and like, didn't Key and Peele do a skit on that? Something similar. But South Africa, not a place for vacation. Like, South Africa is probably one of like 2 or 3 places in Africa where you might be able to visit and be okay. But South Africa is not a safe place. Not a safe place. I won't say who, but there was a person I was talking to who actually lived in Africa for quite some time, South Africa. And legit, like, they would have to keep money like in their living room floor because they're going to get robbed. And the person just comes in, takes the money, and leaves them alone. Like,
oh, so they just say, "Here, take it."
Yeah, like they put down like $50,000, and they're just like they leave it in the living room so that whenever they get robbed,
trouble.
they just take it. And
they
go.
don't even have to wake up.
Yep, pretty much.
Like, oh, we got robbed last night.
Yeah,
it's kind of like when you live in a bad neighborhood, you keep your car door unlocked.
Yeah, like, you don't want them to smash the window or
That's funny, man. I had no idea about that.
Yeah,
I would have jumped at the opportunity to go to South Africa. I guess I would have assumed that that's one of the not so bad places, but
and the police are super corrupt.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. So, yeah,
that's funny.
There's that. So with that, we kind of talked about the assassination with Trump. So of course we're going to segue into the great debate that happened last week with Kamala and Trump. So, I'll tell you my first thoughts, and I'll be completely honest with you. I think Trump did pretty bad. I think he struck the same note that he did with Biden. And, like...
How so?
Well, I think he said a lot of things like, the same things like, if you vote them in, they're going to destroy this country.
Yeah.
Like
the same 3 or 4 things.
Correct. Like the same thing. And he might be right, but like, go into more things on that. Yeah. Like, you're probably... Well, you're probably right in some aspect that, like, if you can argue that and he kind of brought it up where he said, you've been in office with Biden, like, why hasn't these things changed? In fact, in one point, he even challenged her. He said, why don't you go down to the border tomorrow? Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I think those two specific things were probably his strongest moments.
Yeah.
Which I think one of those, the border one was more at the beginning.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a strong way to start. And yeah, you just said well, let's go right now and go fix it because you have the ability to just sign an executive order and fix it, and the Border Patrol probably would be happy to have you fix that. And then the other thing was at the end, he said, she's already been vice president for 4 years, and let's be honest, she's probably had a lot of pull in that office compared to maybe what other vice presidents have had.
Yes.
And then, so why hasn't she done these things that she's saying she's going to do? So, yeah, I thought those were his two highlights as well.
Yeah, and I think definitely his lowlights were like, he's like, sorry. He's like, they're eating the cats and dogs. He's like,
yeah.
And you can see like Kamala like look over at him, and
that obviously is probably the biggest takeaway of the debate.
Yes.
I mean, all the memes are about that. There's a goddamn TikTok filter about that. And that was one of the, perfectly exemplifies what I thought was so frustrating about it. I thought it was frustrating from both candidates' side, in my opinion. We'll talk about Kamala later. But what was frustrating about Trump is that, he has certain things that he wants to highlight. Every politician has their issues. Even Kamala has very canned answers. But Kamala, she at least has a way of pulling on people's heartstrings. She knows how to articulate a point. 100%. She knows how to structure her arguments.
She's a prosecutor.
She's a prosecutor. And at one point, she even was pulling at the start. She was almost doing her opening statements like, you will see on this stage, almost like the evidence will show this, that. Yep. So she kind of had that same format. But so she was able to articulate her point and, maybe give examples. And Trump, though, he knew, I want to talk about immigration. That's one of his big issues that he runs on, okay? But the problem is that he just doesn't pick the right way to go into detail about it that's going to appeal to people that maybe are undecided or are unaware of these specific issues. And so there's a lot of things he could have talked about for immigration. He asked himself, what's an example of where immigration is affecting everyday Americans? Well, the Springfield, Ohio situation. And the only details he gave about that is they're eating the cats and dogs. They're eating people's pets. Moderators say that's not happening. Kamala Harris is laughing at him. Right. So he looks like a madman that's completely making stuff up.
Correct.
But the reality is that there is a real problem with Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio. Do you know the details on this?
Yeah. So actually, Trump did say, he said, citizens have reported that.
So he said that he saw it on TV.
Yeah.
And so the problem is that this kind of became a joke. Now, there are people that have said that, and it's all over social media. People have videos oh, this person has my cat or whatever, but then some of these videos come out where the location actually isn't in Springfield. The one thing that he decided to focus on, the one aspect of that, was not only the most extreme and maybe unpalatable, but also the one thing that's unverified. It's unverified. It's hard for people to swallow that. Instead, he could have taken the slightly less sensational route of bringing up some of these accounts that were given by the citizens of Springfield at the city hall meetings. And these are videos that I watched after the debate because I didn't know about this issue at the time, but I had to look into it. Not everybody will. But if you look into it, there's people in Springfield at the city hall meetings talking about this issue. The problem is that Springfield is a town of 60,000 people. There's 20,000 Haitian immigrants in Springfield.
So a third.
They added an extra third of their population on. And so they're explaining that there's a gas station there. Buses of Haitians come to the gas station and they drop them off. And, there's no systems in place to assimilate these people into our culture.
Right, yeah.
And so all of the residents that I heard speak at the city hall meeting recognized it's not the immigrants' fault that these issues are arising.
Okay.
It's
the services.
And we know that it's important to protect these people because they're refugees from a country that's essentially anarchy. There's no government there.
Apart. Yep.
And so they come over here, and naturally, since they don't have the same norms as us, a different culture, anarchy or not over there, there's going to be some clashing. So one lady was just upset that her experience going to the grocery store, there's tons of people there. They don't move out of the way. Like if you see somebody coming on the opposite way to you, like you get your family and move them to the side so someone can go through. Well, they'll just stand in the middle of the hallway. She has to push through them like she's in a bazaar, right?
Right.
And they just have none of those manners. Like they're shutting doors in people's faces, just like minor things that just like the cultures are really clashing. Another person came out and said that the healthcare services are very clogged up. Doesn't matter if these people are immigrants or not. If you bust 20,000 people into a town that isn't really prepared for it, you go to the disability centers, the social security centers, you go to all the doctor's offices, it is completely filled with Haitians because the facilities just simply can't handle it.
Right.
And the city is not really doing anything to bring extra resources in to equip the town to handle that. And then one last guy, he said that he's like, I'm a YouTuber, I'm a content creator, and I come out here, I'm like making videos of what's going on out here. Like I see them go into the parks and they'll grab a duck and they'll wring its neck and they'll bring it home and eat it.
Oh, he said that?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And, this is, these are things that are actually true, that are happening.
Yeah.
And he could have chosen any of those things to highlight. These are all issues, like the healthcare issue, just the cultural clash. These are issues that the average American can relate to, and they can imagine being in that situation, and they might not have been aware of that issue, but hearing Trump explain that, well, they can say, well, maybe there is a problem here.
Right.
That might sway some people over to his side, which should be the point of this debate.
Right.
But instead, he came out looking like a joke because he didn't articulate any of that. I didn't know any of that happened until I looked more into it. And again, most people aren't going to take the time.
So with the moderators, right, they came out immediately, essentially right after that, and they said there's no legitimate record of people eating cats and dogs.
They said the city council or whatever said that there's no record
Correct.
of that. Yeah.
If they were that, and correct me if I'm I want your honest opinion. Like, if Kamala said something like that, do you think the moderators would have been okay? We haven't heard of that happening from the city council there. Can you go in depth further and explain what you mean by that?
No, they wouldn't, because there's multiple times when she outright lied as well. So
100%.
I don't think anybody can honestly argue that it was an unbiased moderation team.
Correct.
Especially after watching the one with Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I thought those moderators did great. I don't even know what way that they sway politically, but I'm guessing probably to the left. But they did a great job of just letting them duke it out. It was an embarrassment of a debate. Right. But I couldn't tell what side they were on. This time I absolutely could.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah. And truthfully, like sitting back and actually watching it, it was tough, man, because I kind of did feel bad a little bit for Trump. Like, I felt like there were times where, it's like if you're going to tee up Kamala, like I said, maybe instead of saying, well, there's no recollection of that, okay, Kamala, let's talk about this. Maybe say, hey, that's not what we're hearing. Can you articulate more on what you mean by that?
Yeah.
Give him an extra couple minutes. You know what I mean?
Guide him to articulating more.
Test his knowledge. Don't give him the answer, but say, what do you mean by that? And then let him bring those things up if he has that, right?
Yeah, they should approach it from the idea that it's their job to help Americans come up with the best objective opinion. So if something is said that's not 100% clear, then ask for more information on it.
Right.
But I thought that he had an interesting strategy because he obviously caught on to that.
Yeah.
And, the moderators, they control who gets the mic. Yep. And one thing that I think Trump did good that I noticed pretty early on is that he would just force them to let him talk. So they actually had a rule where they would shut the mics off of the person that's not speaking.
Yep.
And Trump, even if his mic was off, if they were going to move on to another question after Kamala says something, he's not going to let her just have the last word on something if he can refute it. So he'll just keep talking until they turn his mic on. And that allowed him to get more in and kind of control the room more. And I thought that he came off more powerful for that reason. Whereas there was a couple times when Kamala did secede to the moderators where like they cut her off and she just let that happen.
Yeah.
And so Trump was definitely a more dominant force.
Sure. What I think Kamala did pretty well was I think she took some of the playbook from Trump from 2016 with Hillary. Mm-hmm. So, like, with Hillary, when she was saying her things, when she was walking around or whatever, Trump would almost, like, make faces or walk near her, almost like just distracting enough, kind of like the O.J. Simpson trial. I don't know how much you know about that, but the defense purposely made it a circus in there. Like, like they were saying things that were just outlandish to like get people's attention away from the issue that is being had, right? Like just constant emotional stuff. Trump did the same thing to Hillary in 2016. You'd be in jail. Remember, he said that. Like just cutting over her, standing like pretty close behind her, like over her, right? Like a dominating thing. Where in there, I saw her several times while he was saying these things. She's like smirking at him and just like laughing, like basically like trying to make him look stupid.
Yeah, made him look like a joke.
Correct.
And it works. It's effective.
100%. Because I felt that way. Like the cats and dogs thing. Like even I was like, okay, where did this come from? Because like I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, and like you said, unfortunately, like. Most Americans are not going to look into that, right? Like, they're not going to look into, well, there has to be something there because, like, there has to be some type of tangible story behind that. It might not be about cats and dogs, but they read about a duck being slaughtered in a park, pretty much.
But not coming from Trump, though. I think if any other candidate of the past had brought that up, then it would have more credibility, even with just that being said.
Sure.
But I think for how much they try to make Trump look like a raving madman, then for him to say, he should have known to say something that crazy.
Yes.
Even if it is true.
Even if it's true. Yeah.
To say something like that with no other context, like they're going to make you look dumb. Like he should have been more aware of how they're trying to make him look.
Yeah.
And going up against someone like Kamala, he should know how she's going to try to portray herself as the classy, well-spoken prosecutor, and he should have tried to subvert their expectations.
Yeah.
And he didn't.
And, dude, so the first question of the debate, the moderators look at Kamala and they're like, can you tell us in a definitive answer if the economy is better now than it was 4 years ago when you and Biden started? First thing she says, you know, I grew up as a middle class. It's like, no. I want to hear a yes or no, Kamala. And after that, I'm like, okay, this is how it's going to be ran. Like, this is why. And we'll get to what our projections are for who's going to get elected. But this is why I feel a lot of people voted for Trump against Hillary was because they don't want a politician. Answer the question.
Yes.
Like, if there's one thing that I can relate to Trump on is when that guy tells me something, whether it's rude or not, he's gonna do it. Like, he's gonna do it. It's gonna happen. He's gonna follow through with it. He talked about ending the war between Ukraine and Russia by the end of the week or whatever he said when he gets elected. Quite honestly, like, I kind of believe him on that because his military stuff was great when he was in office. Which naturally, as a conservative, they tend to lean more towards the military stuff and protection of the country, stuff like that. But anyway, the point is that when I heard that, I'm like, I just want an answer.
Yeah, and it's a canned answer.
You know what I mean?
Like, I thought she seemed really nervous at first.
Yes.
And that was an example. Like, you know, I think most people can think of the mindset they get in when they start public speaking. You try to plan for certain things. You kind of know what you want to say. She just heard like the word economy, and then that triggered her. This is my economy response. And
correct.
You know, it's a decent story. You can tell. You know, she says, I come from a middle-class family. She wants to be relatable.
Right.
That was her, I think, her number one goal. Her and her team want her to be seen as relatable. But then, like, that's fine. You're like, okay, she has a canned answer. She is a politician. But she just recently did her first unscripted press interview with ABC, and this is over in Pennsylvania.
This was before the debate, right?
I think it was after.
Was it after?
I think it was
Okay.
right after. So the debate was most people's first time hearing Kamala like talk unscripted, and that was like what I was interested to see because people said she's really bad at speaking off script. You know, she's been avoiding the media. She only speaks on a teleprompter at her rallies. Well, she ends up doing this interview with ABC in Pennsylvania, which is like an important state for her to win, one of the battleground states. And this reporter did a great job of really just, again, trying to help her to explain to Americans who she is. He's doing the exact thing that the moderators should be doing at a debate. Very objective, but he was asking good, pointed questions,
Sure.
Such as, it was another economy question, like, what exactly are you going to do whenever you get into office for the economy to make things better for Americans? And you know what she said? Well, I come from a middle-class family.
No, she didn't.
And I want to create what I call an opportunity economy.
The same
The
answer.
exact same answer, 100%. And so then you know, like, okay, she's completely just making a script in her head, and she has no ability to answer that question. And so all I knew is that she comes from a middle-class family. She wants to create an opportunity economy. It's just like buzzwords that they're creating.
Correct, yes.
And so, like you said, maybe like Hillary, people just don't believe she's like a real person. At least I don't. Like, she comes off like this one lady I used to work for when I worked at a call center, like a corporate call center floor director, where she comes around and you like her and you're like, oh, I'm glad I work for someone that's so personable. She's always smiling and she's friendly and she asks how you're doing and, hey, how's your family? You know, you're doing a great job. We really like having you around here. And then 2 days later, she calls you into her office and she's like, hey, listen, you know, we had to make some changes and I just want to let you know that your position has been terminated. And you're like, well, I thought I'd been doing a great job. Like, yeah, well, I really fought for your job, but, you know, the company is going through that merger and, you know, this is what we have to do, and it's never easy. It's never easy. And you realize she's all about the company, you know, and that's the vibe that I get from Kamala is she's all about doing whatever the company tells her she has to do. That's what she's going to do. They say, hey, go out there and smile. Whenever he says something, laugh at him. You know, make it seem like you're just like everyone else. You're from a middle class family. Right. I'm pretty sure the entire backstory is fake.
Yeah, I'd have to look into it. I have no idea, but
she talks about how she's like, yeah, my mom took care of us. We had this neighbor that we call her second mom, and she took care of us a lot, and she was a small business owner, and that's why I know what small business owners go through. She never says her name or anything.
Small business, like she was a franchisee of McDonald's or something.
Yeah, maybe, but it just seems like a fake story, backstory she's created for herself. She just doesn't seem genuine, and at least when Trump talks, even if what he's saying is ridiculous, sometimes, like, at least I believe that he means it.
Exactly. Yes.
I know what he stands for.
Correct. Like, that's what I'm saying. And, like, he'll tell people to F off. As he has before, and he'll keep doing it, you know? Like, and he brought up another good point about the tariffs. The China tariffs. And the way, like, it just, he gets so caught up in the Chinese stuff. But, like, the China tariffs. He made a great point. Because she started crapping on his economy. Like, she was saying certain numbers. I can't remember them now. But he's like, if they hated him so much, why did they keep the tariffs on China?
Oh, that was a good one, too.
I mean, it's a good point. Yeah. It's like, you guys could have taken that away.
And guess what? The moderators did ask that question to Kamala.
Yes.
What did she say?
She deflected it.
Yeah, nothing related to the question.
Yeah. It's like, it was like, oh, I don't know. Like that, like, not even like, oh, you know, ultimately that's up to Joe at that time or whatever. Like, not even like, it was just straight up like, you know.
Yeah, a lot of those questions, that would have been a great answer. Like, whenever he's asking, well, why haven't you done this? Why did you do that? Like, I didn't,
right.
Joe did.
Yeah, the dementia patient.
Yeah, and she didn't even try to make a point to say, like, hey, you guys think I'm in control back there, but I'm not. I'm not the president. Like, that would be the perfect answer for her to say, but she didn't even deny any of that. And one thing that's also funny is, in the debate and in that interview I mentioned, she's also asked, what separates you from Joe Biden? And she always says, like, well, obviously I'm not Joe Biden. Well, we know you're not literally Joe Biden.
Correct. Like, that's...
It seems like that's her main point. Like, oh, what a ridiculous question.
Yeah,
like, I'm Kamala Harris. Like, are you dumb?
Yeah.
That's not what we mean. And she doesn't answer it, you know? And so that is highly frustrating, is even though she's well-spoken, you can tell that it's just like a canned answer. It's like when a corporation comes out in support of some social issue, like they're coming out and like Coca-Cola makes a statement about the trans movement. You're like, where is this coming from? Like, this is not like a person's opinion. This is like a marketing tactic.
Correct.
And that everything that Kamala says seems like a marketing tactic, and she doesn't really have any policy. Whenever she does say policy, I think the two things that she might have said is that she wants to give $25,000 down payment assistance to everybody.
Yes.
And then she also wants to work with the home builders in order to help them basically to build up more housing because there's a housing shortage. Well, like, these are things that are done in California, where she's from,
and it's not working.
It is like that is the worst place possible to buy a house. Like, having more regulation with those home builders is not the thing to do.
The average home, and I sent you that video. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but
I don't think so.
The average household in California cost is $800,000.
Yeah.
The average,
and that's is that statewide too, probably.
Yeah, that's like, and we're talking like
San Francisco,
900 square foot house. Like we're not talking like 3,000-4,000 square feet here. We're talking like. And you want to bring those policies to the rest of the U.S.? Like, this is a problem. Like, this is what freaks me out, you know? And then we go back to the abortion thing, right? Because we knew that was going to be a big thing on that too. Like, and how do you feel about what Trump did before he left office, where he essentially left it up to the states? He removed Roe v. Wade and said, you guys as states, if you want abortion, you can have abortion, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So, like, I don't really care too much about abortion as a whole. Like, it doesn't affect me too much.
Sure.
I will say that I can think of a time in my life where if I had gotten a girl pregnant, I probably would have been relieved if she wanted to have an abortion.
Sure.
And so I think that I would have utilized that, and I don't think I truly have any, like, moral reason to, like, be opposed to it. I don't have, like, the religious background and stuff that I think fuels a lot of that opposition to abortion. But when it comes to, like, when is the cutoff, I think there should be a cutoff.
Right.
But in general, I tend to like policies where they do leave it up to the states.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the idea of the country being a federation of individual states. We're almost like our own little countries. And that allows every state to be unique in its own way, and allows you to live in a place where you have the policies in place in that state that match what you're looking for.
Correct.
And then we all come together for big issues that do require federal policy. And, that's when, the representatives come in, and that is important. But I think the more that can be done on a state level, like marijuana is an example. That's something that I have more stake in than abortion. Well, like, we already have it essentially where states are deciding on their own, but it is still federally illegal.
Yes.
I think that's dumb. It should just be, it should leave it up to the states. The federal government should have no say on that. And so I guess I did like that aspect of it for abortion.
I mean, in reality, like, that is conservatism, right? Is like less government. That's the point, is like leave it up to the states. So when the moderators were asking Trump, would you sign a pro-abortion bill? I can't remember what they said, or no abortion bill, or some type of like hard line, right? And Trump's like, it would never even come to my desk because it's up to the states. And then they kept asking it, and he's like, I felt like either they weren't understanding or they were like purposely trying to like pit him into a corner. And I'm like, dude, that's like me asking you, are you going to crap out the sun later? Like, it literally is not going to happen. Yeah. Like, it can't happen. The policy says that it's up to the states. It's not like, yes, he's the government, but that policy, it doesn't include him anymore.
That was the whole point, is that he doesn't want to decide.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like, and then the other thing that, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but where he had brought up, like, in Virginia or something like that, they had killed a baby or babies past term, like when they were like well into the later trimester, the third trimester, or even when they were out like in birth.
Yes.
there is actual video of the governor saying that, like actual video that I heard from Joe Rogan talking on his podcast. They actually played the video of him saying that, of basically, well, we talked to the mothers about it once the baby's born, and then, if that decision's made, we leave it up to the mothers, but if the decision's made, then we harvest the organs and stuff like that.
And I would like to know what is specifically the context. Like, was it about something where it was like I don't know, a stillborn, or like
sure.
a something near that, where,
right.
it was like a catastrophic, tragedy, or it's not like a healthy birth,
right. Or even viable. Like, can it live? You know what I mean?
Because, there's situations where babies are born exactly where they're not viable on their own. And so if it was something like that, well, then maybe that was an appropriate response. But that's where, like, a lot of this stuff becomes hard for me to form an opinion on.
Sure.
If I don't know all the details. One thing that Kamala had said that was sort of similar, where, like, it was taken out of context, and of course they didn't check her on this,
right.
is when he said that it's going to be a bloodbath if Kamala's elected or
right.
Biden's elected.
Yep.
And he did say that, but it was about the automotive industry.
Correct.
And the policies on that.
Yes,
so he basically said the economy is going to be a bloodbath if they go in, because whatever policies they would pass related to the auto industry would completely fuck up the economy. Yeah. And so and I think that she knows that, but she knows that most people, again, don't look into things. They just hear the headlines. And so she was playing on that. And I think that, man, the moderators should call people out on blatant misrepresentations like that. If Trump was misrepresenting what that governor said in Virginia, he should be called out on that.
Absolutely.
And also Kamala, though, should be called out on completely misrepresenting, and she just wasn't.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, there's so much to unpack with that. It's just, we always tell people, please look into it yourself. And it's hard because there's always going to be that percentage that doesn't, like Trump could say he's going to murder half the country and they'll still vote for him, right? Like, there's going to be that small percentage of people that, regardless of what they say, it's going to happen, like they're going to vote. But look into these stories, people. Please look into these stories, because it's just, and know your history. Look at history and read through the stories. That's all I gotta
There's
say.
so much information to sift through. And later on, we're going to talk about another story where it's like I kind of got two different ideas of a situation based on who I watched. Like when you have, there's so many things to decide on. Like how many people are really going to listen to Trump, whatever that was, whether it's a phone call or what, where he said the bloodbath quote.
Yeah.
Like how many people are going to listen to the full context?
Correct.
99% of the time, you're getting it filtered through a third party. And it's very difficult to even take the time to look into it that far, let alone read multiple different sources on the same issue. So it is tough, and that's what really is frustrating for me as somebody that's, for the first time, really getting more involved in politics than I ever have. I wish it was easier to pick a side, but it's like everywhere you turn, it's misrepresentation, people dodging questions. Trump also dodged a lot of questions in his own interviews.
Yep.
Not even out of the debate, like even before the debate. At least he is going to the press, and he is going into some tough rooms for him, and he's taking questions. But again, he always pigeonholes things into the immigration, even regardless of what the question is about. Did you listen to him on Theo Von's podcast?
I didn't. No.
Okay, well, you might want to give that one a listen. Pretty short. I think it's like an hour or less.
Okay.
And Theo Von, he likes to get really personal with his guests. And getting an opportunity to interview Donald Trump is something where he obviously didn't take it lightly. But he wanted to ask some questions, and you can tell that he would ask certain questions, and then Donald Trump would just shoehorn it into immigration. And one thing I was disappointed by there is, again, I like to see that candidates are like real people. Well, Theo Von gets people to open up on his podcast about a lot of personal stuff. And so he was asking some personal questions to Trump, like they were talking about alcoholism, and Theo Von struggled with alcoholism and drug abuse, and has known people that have. And Trump said, my brother, he used to be an alcoholic, or he died as an alcoholic. And Theo Von tried to dig into that a little bit more and say, like, he tried to give him a softball question to make him appear more human. He said, what was one of your best memories of your brother?
Sure.
anybody should be able to answer that question
Yeah.
about their dead sibling. And he would not answer that question. It's like, come on, dude. Like, give me something to make me think that you are a human being, you know?
Yeah.
People a lot of times support Trump because they think that he would be the guy you want to have a beer with and stuff. But then I hear things like that, and it's like, come on, are any of these people humans?
Yeah. Not only that, it's my understanding he's actually not a big drinker at all. Like he doesn't.
Well,
drink
Trump,
much.
he says that he hasn't done any drugs.
Yep.
Yeah, so I guess
Yep.
he wouldn't be the best person to have a beer
Have a
with.
root beer, man.
Yeah.
With him.
I guess you're right about
McDonald's.
that.
He loves fast food.
Yeah.
So,
That's
but
funny.
interesting. So, with that being said, who do you think's winning the election?
Just based on what I've seen out there, I feel like Kamala's gonna win. It would have to be. Remember, like last election, they were talking about the red wave or whatever.
The
like,
red wave. Yep.
Supposedly, how Trump supporters are a non-vocal majority, where they're too afraid to speak their opinion, but they're out there, and then we're gonna come and vote, and we're gonna win and surprise everybody. That didn't ever really happen. And I feel like that would need to happen. Like that would need to ring true this time. It would need to be a situation where maybe that is the case, but not enough got out to vote last time, and now they will. Because I think for the average person, Kamala seems like the easiest choice. Because like it or not, when you're constantly bombarded with a certain message, and everybody on social media and everybody on TV, and I'm sure on like SNL and things like this, all these entertainment platforms are shoving down your throat one message, and they're all joking about one candidate, and the other candidate is just respected, that's going to have an effect on you.
Correct.
And the average person that doesn't look any further into it, the debate is the only source of information they have about this election to go off of, then they're just going to vote for Kamala.
Yes.
And so I think it was a mistake for him not to take another debate. He said no more debates. And so that was it. I think that he should recognize that he might be down on this one, and it might be better for him to do one more debate, try to leave on a higher note, and that would be his best chance to win, but he's not doing it.
Yeah.
So in the first week of the NFL season, there was a traffic stop where these police officers on motorcycles saw a McLaren going by at like 60 miles an hour in like a 45 zone. They pull him over, and it's Tyreek Hill. And he plays for the Dolphins, or what does he play for?
Wide receiver for the Dolphins.
Okay, for the Dolphins. And so, huge football star.
Huge.
Pulls him over for speeding, nothing more than that. And there was like 4 or 5 officers that pull him over. Like, I've gotten pulled over before just in the suburbs, and it's like, why they call for backup. It's like I was just speeding, and this is what was happening here. There was like 5 motorcycles of guys, right? So the officer goes up to the window. Tyreek Hill hands the police officer the ID, and they kind of go to check it out, and he rolls the window back up. He's got tinted windows, in his nice-ass car. And then the officer got mad that he rolled the window up, and he said, like, hey, roll that back down, and then said, actually, you know what, I'm going to get you out of the car. So opened up the car, pulled him out, and, basically apprehended him, like, pushed him down onto his knees, and proceeded with this long-ass traffic stop. I think it was 20 minutes total, which resulted, I think, in just a ticket, or they might have even let him go by the end of it. But it became this huge controversial thing. It's being touted as like another example of racist cops abusing their power. And what was interesting about it is the first breakdown of this that I saw was from a right-wing source that I watch called Actual Justice Warrior on YouTube, and he breaks down a lot of these issues. His opinion was that the officers were completely in the right, and kind of broke it down in a way that made it seem like that was the case. But then I watched like the unedited footage just to kind of form my own opinion after that, and it really seems like the officer was overreacting. Like at the very least, he escalated a situation for no reason. The only defensible thing that I could think that he was thinking in the moment is with the tinted windows, he couldn't see what was going on in the car, but he didn't really give him much of a chance to comply and roll the windows back down. So based off of like what you've seen, what did you think of that situation?
Yeah, so I'm aware, like the speed thing. Some states exercise, there is case law where technically, like, if we want to pull you out of the car, like, if I stopped you and I said, hey, during my traffic stop, I want you to stand at the back of your bumper, like, outside your car, you have to do it. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no, like, anything like that. So you have to do it. Now, I don't know if that's what they were trying to do. Like I said, some states exercise that more than others. Minnesota, that's not a thing here. Some states also have, like, if I stopped you, I would even have you sit in my front passenger seat. I'm sure you've probably seen that a couple times. Like, some more southern states will do that. So, again, he's not going to have drugs on him. I mean, I guess
I don't think they knew who they had on their hands. Like, if I was that police officer and he handed me the ID, they're like, well, he saw his ID. If I got Tyreek Hill's ID, I would not know who that is. Other than the fact that
your
he's
partners
driving.
Would.
Okay.
And not to mention, you're in Miami.
Well, yeah, the problem is they're in Miami right outside the stadium.
Yes.
It's a $350,000 car driving by, surrounded by many
Dude's
others.
Wearing gold chains.
Yeah.
Like,
what do you think?
You should probably be like, yeah, I think this guy's a player, you know. So, yeah, I won't like get too much into this, but I may or may not have stopped a professional player. I won't say from what sport, okay? But what ends up happening when you do that is what they do is they have their cars flagged. So anytime you stop them or essentially run their plates, it sends an alert to the BCA, which, for those that don't know, stands for Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. Essentially, they're basically the big bosses of investigating crimes. Sends an alert, and then the next day, the chief or the sheriff, whoever's the big boss of that department, will get a notification from the BCA saying, this officer at this time ran this plate, here's the reason, blah, blah, blah. You know, obviously mine was legitimate.
Right.
And, so.
Well, what's the purpose of that?
Because they don't want anybody to just search names, right? Like, I can't go in, like, Justin Jefferson. I can't just go tomorrow and type in BCA Justin Jefferson and click it and find his address. Like, that's highly illegal.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And so what'll happen is it sends the alert and saying,
that makes sense.
Because if it's not legit, then you're going to get fired and sued.
Because when I used to be a debt collector, we could search anybody's information.
Yes. Yep.
And we could find your information
100%.
and your mom's information. And so, like, they tell you, don't go searching Justin Bieber up, because then you can get his social and everything like that.
Correct. Yep.
It would be a similar
Same
situation.
Concept. Yep. Same concept. So, so there's that. So, anyway, so I guess how I would take it is, like, again, I wasn't there. I haven't seen, like, body cam video. I've seen most of it where they're, like, driving by or something, and he's, like, yelling at him, and he's sitting on the ground. He's got cuffs on him. I think, like, legitimately, and I know Tyreek's kind of a smaller dude, but if I see this jacked guy getting upset and he's maybe mouthing off to me or something and maybe partially not listening, I could see, like, him going in cuffs for a second. Like, if this is gonna spiral out of control, is he gonna run on us? He's got a sports car, you know what I mean? So take him out of that situation, cuff him, detain him, and then release him from the scene. Like, there's always that saying, they can always be released from cuffs. Like, cuffs aren't concrete, they're not glue. Just take them off, like, after a while, you know what I mean?
And Tyreek said that his motivation for rolling the window back up was that he doesn't want people saying, oh, that's Tyreek Hill being arrested right now. And so that's why he did that. And there was a moment just before, like, when he was told to put the window down, he did put it a little bit more down, not all the way. Sure. And then that's when the cop just made the decision to do it. I guess I compare that to, I mean, real non-compliant videos that I've seen with, like, those sovereign citizen type people.
Yeah.
And they do that passive aggressive shit where, like, hand me your ID, and they put it down, like, they go just like a little bit, right? And they stick it through twice the width of their ID. That's how far they put down their window, and they slide it through, and they're just being passive aggressive. They have a post-it note on there that says, I do not answer questions, blah blah blah. The cops that I see deal with those people exercise way more patience than I can see
Sure.
myself using.
Yeah.
And then in this case, it was kind of the opposite, where he did hand his ID over right away. And, when he said roll it down, he did roll it down a little bit more. Like, it seemed like he wasn't trying to be a dick. And especially, like,
Sure.
he's about to go make how much money is he about to go make right now?
I don't know how much he makes a game, but it's a lot.
He's not going to want to
Yeah.
throw this away over that, right? And so it seemed like an unfortunate situation, but it's another example of, like, depending on where you get this information, I 100% believe Tyreek Hill to be in the wrong and the police to be, like, well within their rights until and I don't know the laws on that, but, like, after watching it, I had without any commentary, I had a different perspective on it. So I guess that's why it's important to look both ways. But one thing I noticed is that there was a moment where, his buddies saw him being pulled over, so they pull over, and it was teammates. I don't know who it was. But he starts talking to police, like, what's going on here? Like, why are you pulling him over? The cop did lie and said, like, well, he wasn't giving us the ID. He has to identify himself when he's pulled over. Otherwise, this is what happens. And then, well, it turns out he did give the ID right away. So maybe he knew he was kind of in the wrong at that moment.
Okay.
But then that guy gets sat down too over like by Tyreek Hill, and they're just sitting there. And these Dolphins fans walk by, and they said, "Oh, hey, I'm a really big fan." And you can immediately tell that the cop had a different demeanor after that, because I think that's when he realized what he had on their hands.
Yeah.
And they kind of lightened up. So, like, do you feel like a police officer is likely to change the way they handle the situation based off of, like, who it is? Like, under threat of, like, I don't know if the NFL would have sued the police department if they missed the game for a wrongful arrest or something like that.
No, like I guess I can only really draw from my personal experience, I guess. I mean, the one time I did, like, I treated it the exact same way, like, because the way I look at it is, like, I don't get paid millions of dollars. I wish I did, right? But, like, a lot of people see cops and just, like, don't think of them like, yeah, they're going to have, like, grilled chicken tonight with their family. Like, it's almost like they're going to go home, they're going to go to the PD, get in their sleeping pod, and then they're going to wake up in the morning.
Like Master Chief.
Get in their squad
You're
car,
going
and
to
they're ready to go.
cryostasis.
So my point to that is like, as much as I want people to treat me normally, I'm going to do the exact same. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to treat it like...
That makes sense.
Did you violate something? If you did, then okay. Like, let's deal with it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be like... I'm not going to do any special deals or any... Like, no. That's not going to happen. Like, it is what it is, man. So,
Yeah.
you put on your pants same way I do, you know? So, that's the way I view it. But
Yeah.
what are your thoughts? I mean, what... Like, if you were a cop and you pull over, I don't know, come up with someone that, you know, like a Robert Downey Jr. or something. Like, what?
Yeah, I mean, I would handle it normally, and I feel like, you would expect that they understand that you just got to do your job. I mean,
100%.
Tyreek Hill is not fucking worried about a $15 or 15 mile per hour speeding ticket,
Yeah.
So he's not, like, he literally was saying, just give me the ticket. I got to go.
Right, yeah,
I got to
like,
get going here. Like,
yeah.
I'll pay you now. Do you have a card reader on you?
For real, dude. Like, see his account,
give
it's
you a
just
tip.
zeros. Like, yeah.
Yeah, if you just
So-
get me out of here.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that there's mutual respect on their part as well. But, like, I think that if it became a situation with someone that is, like, high profile, then maybe I would treat it differently, just because of, like, I'd be thinking of, like, the consequences.
Sure.
There's videos out there of, like prosecutors for the state getting pulled over, and, like, I wonder what goes through the cop's mind when they're dealing with, the state prosecutor.
Yeah, but, like, I think some of it, too, is, like, you have to think about that. The onus is on them, right? Like, like a DWI. Like, look at Jordan Addison, okay? Do you know who that is?
No, I don't know it.
Okay.
No.
So he's the number 2 wide receiver for the Vikings.
Okay.
So anytime Justin Jefferson's hurt, he's our number 1.
Okay.
Like, he is the guy to go to. So he's pretty good. Addison just got his second D-dub in California about 2 months ago, okay? And this was actually, I mean, horrible. Right after one of our rookies died from a DWI. He wasn't drunk, somebody hit him and he died.
Oh, okay.
So this was bad timing, bad optics, everything. So, like, the cops treated it out there the exact same way. Now, granted, they may not have known, like it's not like a 49ers player, like Kittle's not out there or something like that. This is Jordan Addison from Minnesota. He's out in California. However, they treated it the same way, and now Addison's facing up to a 6-game suspension. So at the end of the day, like you might be like, yeah, man, like, that sucks, but, don't drink and drive or don't use drugs and drive. You know what I mean?
How dumb do you have to be to drink and drive when you're that rich? Like Justin Timberlake just had the same situation.
So it's funny you bring that up because I asked the same question, and believe it or not, our local sports radio answered that, and they said what's even more mind-boggling is that almost every NFL team, including the Vikings, regardless of where you are in the country, has a taxi service that they will pay for you to chauffeur you.
Because they don't want anything to happen.
All you need, because the team gets fines too. All you need to do is call up, hey, KOC, the coach, Kevin O'Connell, hey, I'm hammered. Can I get like some type of ride here? This is the address I'm at in Idaho. Yep, give us a half hour. It'll be there. 20 minutes, whatever. Done. And then you just sit there and you sway in the wind until that person gets there and
ridiculous,
you go. Paid.
Well, yeah, that's all I really had to say about Tyreek Hill.
Sure.
You want to call it?
Yeah, we can call it.
All right,
I don't
sounds
think
good,
we
man.
need to go into that. So.
Cool. Well, thanks for watching again. Episode 10, big landmark for us. So we're posting 2 shorts a day now and full episodes on the YouTube channel. If you made it this far, thanks for watching, and please subscribe. Thanks.